4 years into being Ethan's stand-in, the one that got away came back. That very night, I was kicked to the curb. But I went straight to his uncle, Evan, and tearfully declared, I refuse to break up. I belong to the Booth family, in life and in death. Hearing this, Evan raised an eyebrow, his gaze direct and intense. I'm a Booth too, he said. Why not be with me instead? A few months later, I ran into Ethan at a bar. He had his arm around his old flame, looking me over with contempt. Life's been tough without me. Huh? Just then, Evan appeared behind me, gently draping his jacket over my shoulders. His voice was low and firm. Have some manners. Is that any way to talk to your uncle? On the day of my 3rd anniversary with Ethan, his first love, Chris, showed up uninvited. The party was a cacophony of music and chatter. And there was Chris, standing with his suitcase right under the red banner that read, Happy 3rd anniversary to Ethan and Jamie. He was like some stoic statue, standing apart from the rest of the world. Before I could even react, the hand on the small of my back suddenly vanished. Ethan's eyes were wide with disbelief as he stared at the doorway, and then they lit up. He walked right past me, striding toward Chris. What are you doing back? As he said it, I could clearly see the fingers of his hand, hanging by his side, trembling slightly. But Chris didn't say a word. He just casually pushed the handle of his suitcase into Ethan's hand before looking at him. What? I'm not allowed back? Of course not. Ethan cut him off frantically. I just mean, why didn't you tell me you were coming back? I would have picked you up from the airport. You have such a terrible sense of direction. What if you got lost? Listening to Ethan's unfiltered concern for Chris, I wasn't sure whether to laugh or cry. I took a deep breath and bit my lip. Chris noticed my small gesture. He reached out and hooked his pinky around Ethan's, his gaze landing on me. Who's this? Aren't you going to introduce us? Ethan quickly grabbed his hand, about to explain, but Chris glanced up at the red banner overhead and chuckled softly. Oh, so this is your new boyfriend. My timing is really terrible. I guess I should have given you a heads up. With that, he turned and walked away without a second of hesitation. Ethan panicked, tugging at his tie in frustration. He was about to chase after him, ignoring everything else. I instinctively called out his name, my voice cracking. Ethan, the party isn't over. Where are you going? He stopped and finally spared a moment to look back at me. But unlike the loving gaze he used to have, his eyes were now filled with impatience and disgust. My eyes welled with tears as I held the cake. Today is our 3rd anniversary, I whispered. All our guests are still here. Ethan, are you really going to leave me here all alone? Ethan was barely 15 feet away from me. Just last night, we were sleeping in the same bed. But the strange, cold atmosphere between us now made me feel like a complete clown. After a moment, Ethan's expression softened slightly. He wiped a crumb of cake from the corner of my mouth and patted my head like I was a pet. Jamie, be good. Just hang out for a little bit. I'll be right back. And remember, don't eat too many sweets. You're lactose intolerant. I nodded meekly and, out of habit, gave him a kiss on his right cheek. Okay, but you have to come back soon. His back instantly stiffened, and the tips of his ears turned red. Wait for me. I'll be right back. But 5 seconds after Ethan left, I was back at the dessert table, loading up a massive plate. That's right. I'm not the one who's lactose intolerant. It's Ethan's old flame, Chris. 4 years ago, Chris broke up with Ethan to study abroad. Ethan begged him not to go, but Chris had already made up his mind. Unable to stop him, Ethan gave him a hefty parting gift and decided to find a stand-in to ease his broken heart. I happened to show up right then, broke and with very little ambition. When Ethan laid out his generous offer, I agreed without a second thought. If I wasn't supposed to have some self-respect, I would have dropped to my knees and thanked him right then and there. I thought my comfortable life would last forever, but then the original suddenly came storming back. An hour ago, a new post went up from an account I was watching. I'm back. The IP address showed he was in the city. The moment I saw those 2 words, I knew it was time for me to pack my bags and get lost. But before I left, I decided to squeeze one last big payday out of him. My mind started racing, trying to figure out how to look as pathetic as possible so Ethan would feel sorry for me and give me a bigger severance package. Just then, Ethan's friend Mike walked up, arms crossed, and sneered at me, his voice deliberately loud. "Chris is back, Jamie. Your good life is officially over." Mike had been crushing on Chris for years. Out of respect for Ethan, he never made a move, so he took out all his frustration on me, the knockoff, making my life difficult whenever he could. For the money, I'd put up with him for 3 whole years. But since I was on my way out anyway, I figured I had nothing left to lose. I looked at him like he was an idiot and said flatly, "Oh." Not getting the reaction he wanted, Mike completely lost his cool. "What's with the cold act? You think you're Chris or something? Oh my ass. If you know what's good for you, get the hell out and make room for the real deal. You hear me?" I calmly licked some frosting off my fork and shook my head innocently. "I don't speak dog. Maybe try using your words?" Mike's face twisted in anger. The moment his fist flew toward me, a large hand grabbed my shoulder and pulled me back. The familiar scent of sandalwood washed over me. I stumbled into the arms of the person behind me, staring blankly at the well-defined hand that had stopped the punch midair. As warm breath fanned over the top of my head, a man's slightly annoyed click of the tongue reached my ear. "Making a scene at someone else's party, Mike? Is this how Mr. Davis raised you?" Hearing his father's name, Mike's face went pale, and he immediately deflated. He pulled his hand back, bowing his head like a scolded puppy. "Uncle, what are you doing back?" The man they called Uncle let out a cold laugh. He squeezed my shoulder firmly before slowly stepping away from me. "This is the Booth residence. I'm Ethan's uncle. Why can't I be here? You, on the other hand, it's been a few years and you've really grown some balls. You even dare to lay a hand on one of my family?" Hiding behind Evan, I chimed in, "Uncle is right." Mike shot me a nasty glare and muttered, "You're just hiding behind his power. Ethan doesn't love you anyway. He only loves Chris. Let's see how smug you are in a few days." With broad-shouldered, long-legged Evan filling my thoughts, I blurted out, "Hilarious. As if I actually care if he loves me." As soon as the words left my mouth, Evan, standing beside me, raised an eyebrow and gave me an unreadable look. At the same time, Ethan, who had just returned, appeared behind me. "As if I actually care if he loves me?" He clenched his jaw, repeating my words one by one. "Jamie, explain yourself. What did you mean by that?" My breath caught in my throat. Before I could speak, Chris, beaming, looped his arm through Ethan's and took over. "It's Jamie, right? I just got back and haven't had time to find an apartment. Ethan's worried I won't be safe in a hotel, so I might be staying at the house for a while. You don't mind, do you?" Ethan shot me a cold glare and scoffed. "He's just a stand-in. What right does he have to mind?" Then he glanced at Evan. "Sorry you had to see that, Uncle. I'm just dealing with a family matter. Could you give us some privacy?" Ethan's parents had passed away when he was young, and Evan was only 10 years older than him. The Booth family business was massive, but Ethan was only interested in partying. Seeing that his grandson was unreliable, their grandfather had transferred most of the company assets to Evan. Ethan was furious about it but couldn't do anything. On paper, they were uncle and nephew, but behind the scenes, they'd love to see each other fail. Ethan cared about his image more than anything. After what I just said, he probably wanted to skin me alive. My only hope was Evan. "Uncle, But as I watched Evan's back disappear down the hall, the words died in my throat. Okay, so I was the clown after all. As if the fire wasn't hot enough, Chris suddenly reached out and tapped the brooch on Ethan's chest. "This is so ugly, Ethan. I've only been gone for 3 years. How did your taste get so bad?" I knew he wasn't really talking about the brooch, but coincidentally, the ugly brooch he was talking about was a gift from me. I glanced at it, thinking, it's not that bad. I think it looks nice. The next second, Ethan proved me wrong. He looked down at his chest without a change in expression, then ripped the brooch off without a second thought. Then, as if he were tossing out trash, he flicked his wrist and threw away the 3rd anniversary gift I had personally pinned on him just 4 hours earlier. "Jamie, I'm not going to hide it from you. Chris and I are back together. But since you've been with me for 3 years, I'll let you stay here. I've already had the maid move your things to the guest room. From now on, you'll stay there, and you're not to take a single step out of that room without my permission." He issued his orders in a flat, emotionless tone. I didn't say anything. I just stared at the brooch lying on the ground. Last night, just before bed, Ethan found the brooch in the nightstand in my room. He was so happy he spun me around in circles. "Jamie, this is the first gift you've ever given me. I'm so excited. How did my little money grubber suddenly decide to splurge on me?" "Huh? How did you know I liked this brooch?" "I was gonna go pick it out myself after the anniversary." "What do you call that? Great minds think alike, right?" My thoughts snapped back to the present. I sniffled and knelt down. The grass was soft, but the brooch was hard. The moment I closed my hand around it, I couldn't stop the tears from falling. "Ethan, you know I'm poor and cheap, right?" Ethan's hand twitched at his side, his expression slowly turning to ice. "Jamie, I've treated you well these past 3 years, haven't I? What, you think I'm not even worth a stupid brooch?" I shook my head and laughed at myself. "This brooch has another name. It's called Eternal Love." The air fell silent. Even the usually foul-mouthed Mike shut up for once, looking at me with something like pity. But Ethan just frowned and clicked his tongue impatiently. "Our contract was very clear. I pay you and you play the part of Chris. But now Chris is back, so I don't need you anymore." As he spoke, he looked at Chris lovingly, and his tone shifted. "The eternal love you're talking about? I can only give that to Chris. Understand?" "I understand. I get it." I cut him off, my voice choked with emotion. "But I still can't let you go. It's been 3 whole years. Tears streamed down my face like a broken dam. I started sobbing, completely losing my composure. Ethan looked at me, a headache clearly forming. After a moment, he pulled a bank card from his wallet and threw it on the ground like he was shooing away a beggar. "There's $1 million on this card. And the villa in Oasis, I'll have it transferred to your name tomorrow. Now get out tonight. Let's just part ways amicably." I suppressed my inner joy, pretending to reluctantly pick up the card. I gave Ethan one last, lingering look full of emotion. Chris waved at me smugly, though his tone was full of mock pity. "I'm so sorry, Jamie. You must be so heartbroken. Do you need help packing?" I was actually hoping we could get to know each other. But Ethan just loves me too much. Are you kidding me? Heartbroken. I was so happy I could fly. I'd had enough of that psycho Ethan for a while now. If he loved Chris so much, why didn't he go abroad with him? Finding a stand-in for 3 years and still trying to play the part of the devoted lover? What a hypocrite. I was cursing him under my breath as I gathered my things when I happened to glance toward the doorway. The first thing I saw was Evan's long legs, which seemed to go on forever. My eyes traveled up. He was wearing a loose silk pajama set, his muscles lean and defined. A few buttons on his chest were undone, giving a tantalizing glimpse of his solid chest. He knocked gently on the door, his gaze subtly flicking to the brooch I'd tossed on the floor. He curved his lips. Eternal love? Only an idiot like Ethan would believe that. My heart skipped a beat. I quickly snatched the brooch, clutching it guiltily in my hand. "What do you mean by that, Uncle? I don't understand." Evan shrugged and walked over to me. He bent down, his warm fingers brushing against my palm as he deftly plucked the brooch from my hand. He held it up to the light, the sharp lines of his profile hidden in the shadows, his thin lips parting slightly. "It's a fake." Those 2 words sent a cold sweat down my back. To make sure Ethan wouldn't notice, I had paid an extra $300 for the most convincing, top-tier knockoff, and Evan had spotted it with a single glance. Trying to save a buck had really bitten me in the ass. I wanted to cry but had no tears left. I had the $1 million, but the villa in Oasis wasn't in my name yet. I pinched my thigh hard and, with red-rimmed eyes, tugged on Evan's sleeve. "Uncle, I know you're as kind as you are handsome, so you're definitely not going to tell Ethan I bought him a fake, right?" Evan gave me a half-smile and tilted his head. "No, I will, unless you promise me one thing." When I woke up in the hotel, it was already 3 in the afternoon. I called Ethan's secretary to ask about the villa, but no one answered. A wave of panic washed over me. I ran a hand through my hair, forcing myself to calm down. Last night, before I left, Evan had only said I had to promise him one thing. He never told me what it was. I chewed on my fingernails, my mind racing. Evan and Ethan had never gotten along. Now that Chris was back, Ethan was surely on cloud 9, which meant Evan had to be pissed off, right? My guess was that he wanted me to go back to the booth house to stir up trouble between Ethan and Chris. The problem was Ethan had already kicked me out. So what Evan really meant was that I should go beg him for help, right? That way he could pressure Ethan, giving me an excuse to return. That had to be it. Time to act. At 7 that evening, I was staking out Evan's office building. My patience paid off. The moment I saw him walk out the door, I bolted forward and, like a total suck-up, threw my arms around his waist. "Uncle," I cooed. The impact made Evan stumble. I couldn't see his expression, but his secretary was staring at me in horror, stammering, Mr. Booth. "Do you need help? I don't remember your nephew looking like this." Evan's voice was practically a growl. "You remember wrong. This is exactly what my nephew looks like." Half an hour later, I was standing nervously in Evan's private residence. "I'm sorry about earlier, Uncle. I didn't mean to do that. Liar. I totally meant to." He threatened me, so I publicly humiliated him in front of his secretary. Seemed fair to me. Evan had his back to me. He took a bottle of whiskey from the cabinet, poured himself half a glass, and then turned to me with a smirk. "Jamie, I'm not Ethan. I'm not that stupid. So cut the crap when you're around me. Otherwise, here we go again." More threats. Was that all he knew how to do? Wasn't it obvious he just wanted me to beg him to send me back to the booth house? I took a deep breath, mustered my courage, snatched the glass from his hand, and downed the whiskey in one go. Then I let out a loud wail. "Uncle, I love Ethan. I can't live without him. I can't leave him. That's why I refuse to break up. I'm a member of the Booth family in life, and I'll be in your family plot when I'm dead. Please, Uncle, help me. Send me back to Ethan." Evan's mouth twitched. The upward curve of his lips held for a few seconds before melting away, his mouth finally pressing into a flat, hard line. What? Was I not being sincere enough? "Okay, Uncle, I swear, everything I said is true. Shut up." He cut me off, his expression dark. "Jamie, are you out of your mind? The guy doesn't want you, and you're still chasing after him? Are you an idiot?" I was stunned. "Why are you so hard to please? It's wrong if I love Ethan, and it's wrong if I don't. I can't figure out your mind games. What is it you want me to promise you? Just spit it out." What felt like an eternity passed. Finally, Evan moved. The next second, he grabbed my waist, pulling me into his lap. His gaze was direct and intense. "You want to be in the Booth family plot, right? I'm a Booth too. Why not be with me instead?" At midnight, I was sprawled on the bed like a deflated balloon. Evan, showing no mercy, kicked my leg. "Did you clean the study? What makes you think you can rest?" I completely snapped. I shot up like a rocket, hands on my hips, and let him have it. "Do you hear yourself? Is that something a human being would say? Ethan, for all his faults, never treated me like a slave. And you? I thought being with you meant good food, good drinks, and nice clothes. But you're making me your personal assistant. No, a live-in maid. You're loaded. Can't you just hire a cleaning service? What kind of man are you, exploiting me like this?" He raised an eyebrow, completely unbothered. "You don't want to do it? Fine. Give me back the $2 million. Half an hour earlier, my imagination had run wild. I assumed when Evan said he wanted me to be with him, he was after my body, so I agreed without a second thought. He immediately transferred $2 million to my account. I happily gave him a peck on the cheek and, with the simple intention of pleasing my new sugar daddy, ducked into the bathroom and started searching online. Yes, even though I'd been with Ethan for 3 years, he'd never touched me. He said he was saving himself for Chris. I had to laugh. I guess the huge box of condoms in the house was for ghosts. So, Just as I was bent over and bracing myself, the bathroom door swung open. It was the first time I realized a person could cycle through so many expressions in such a short amount of time. Confusion, helplessness, shock, horror, disgust, and finally, shame. I had completely misunderstood. Evan didn't want my ass, he wanted my labor. You goddamn capitalist. I shot Evan a hateful glare, picked up the cleaning rag, and started walking toward the study. Just as I took a step, he suddenly grabbed the back of my neck. His hoarse voice whispered in my ear, "I'm tired. The study can wait until tomorrow. For now, go warm up my bed." His hot breath tickled my ear. I instinctively turned my head away, my heart pounding. In the second before he lifted me into his arms and threw me onto the bed, I actually felt a sliver of relief. Thank God, I can finally get some rest. But the next moment, Evan's rough kiss told me silently, "Haha, surprise. I'm not just going to exploit your labor, I'm going to exploit your stamina, too." The next day, I was groggily pulled out of bed by Evan, dressed, and shoved into a car. When we got to the office, his secretary had already set everything up. My desk was right next to Evan's. I ground my teeth, annoyed. "Evan, are you a kidnapper? You think a measly $2 million gives you the right to imprison me?" Evan didn't say a word. His long fingers tapped a few times on his screen before he finally spoke. "I just sent you another $3 million. Can you shut up now?" My face instantly broke into a wide grin. "Yes, sir. Only an idiot turns down free money." But a moment later, my smile vanished, because I saw Chris and Ethan at the office. Ethan froze when he saw me, then his smile faded. He lowered his voice. "Jamie, are you stalking me?" Before I could answer, he rushed on, "I gave you the money and the house. Why are you still haunting me? I'm warning you. Stop fantasizing about me and stop shamelessly stalking me, or I'm calling the cops." I looked at him like he was a complete moron, then walked right past him and poked Evan pitifully. "Uncle." Evan looked up from a stack of files and gave me a complicated look. "You have a fever?" This clueless old man. Chris suddenly let out a laugh. "You don't know, do you, Jamie? Uncle has never been interested in men. All he cares about is work. I'd advise you to—" "It's true. I'm not interested in men." Evan interrupted him, slowly capping his pen. Chris shot me a triumphant look, his face screaming, "See? I told you so." But then Evan paused and changed his tune. "But I am interested in Jamie." Chris's back went rigid. His face turned pale, and his mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Seeing him look so utterly defeated, I was so moved I almost cried. This old man was charming as hell. Ethan glared at me, his expression sour, before explaining why they were there. It turned out that although Chris had studied abroad, his skills weren't up to par. But he refused to stoop to working for a smaller company, so he'd set his sights on Booth Corp. Evan's expression remained neutral. Ethan, impatient as always, blurted out, "I own 5% of Booth Corp. Don't I have the right to get one person a job? I call you uncle out of respect. Don't push your luck." Evan's eyes, which were usually half-lidded as if nothing interested him, were now fixed on Ethan. His gaze was dismissive, almost contemptuous. The temperature in the room plummeted. I was so scared I barely dared to breathe. Ethan's eyes darted around. He was clearly intimidated. Just as the tension reached its peak, Evan suddenly smiled. He tapped his fingers on the desk. "You know what Chris is capable of better than I do. Booth Corp doesn't hire freeloaders, and we're not short on highly educated talent. You want him to work here? Fine. Transfer your 5% of the company shares to me, and I'll agree. How about it?" Before Ethan could explode, he added, "In exchange, I'll give you full control of the gaming subsidiary under Booth Corp. I'll also inject capital in Booth Corp's name and provide you with a professional development team." Evan was a man of his word, and his tone was dead serious. Ethan was torn. He could only look to Chris for help. Chris squeezed his hand in a show of affection, shooting me a smug look. "Since Uncle put it that way, and besides, Ethan, haven't you always wanted your own gaming company? This is perfect, isn't it?" While Chris was off handling his new hire paperwork, Ethan and I went to the stairwell. The moment the door closed, he shoved me hard against the wall, grabbing my chin. "Jamie, what the hell is your game?" I grabbed his hand, and for a second his expression shifted. But in the next, I swung my arm around and slapped him across the face. The sharp crack echoed through the stairwell. Ethan clutched his cheek, staring at me in disbelief. "Jamie, you. I raised an eyebrow nonchalantly and chuckled. "Me what? I wasn't going to make things this ugly. After all, you helped me when I was at my lowest. But I can't do it anymore. I'm tired of being a stand-in for 3 years. Tired of pretending to be meek. I'm just done. I'll be honest with you. Meeting you back then wasn't a coincidence. I sought you out on purpose. 3 years ago, Evan came to my university to give a speech as a successful entrepreneur and donor. I was the student chosen to present him with flowers. Standing in the audience, I fell for the handsome, well-dressed man on stage at first sight. Afterward, I looked him up online and found out he was the old Mr. Booth's youngest and favorite son. He was 31, single, with 0 scandals to his name. The media speculated he was likely impotent. I passionately wrote a 1,000-word comment defending him, but just like me, it disappeared into the vastness of the internet. Still, I didn't give up. I started asking around about him. Then, by chance, I saw a picture of Chris and learned about Ethan's obsession with him. I realized my opportunity had arrived. For 3 years with Ethan, I was on high alert every single day, terrified he'd try to make a move. Luckily, besides my face, I had nothing in common with Chris, so our interactions were limited to occasionally sharing a bed and a peck on the cheek. That was it. While Ethan was lukewarm toward me, his friends wanted to eat me alive. Mike was the worst. One time, he drugged my drink and left me outside a bar. I almost got assaulted that night. If Evan hadn't happened to be passing by and saved me, I can't imagine what would have happened. Afterward, I tearfully told Ethan about it, but he was dismissive. "Mike was just joking around with you. Don't take it to heart. Besides, you're standing here perfectly fine. Aren't you? Be good, don't make a big deal out of nothing." Recalling this, I looked calmly at Ethan, whose face had already turned ashen. "You keep saying you treated me so well. You keep asking what my game is, accusing me of stalking you. Let me ask you this. If it had been Chris who was drugged that night, would you still—" "Shut up," he snarled, his face full of disgust and contempt. "Who the hell do you think you are? You don't even deserve to be mentioned in the same breath as Chris." I said nothing. After 3 seconds, I opened the door and looked back at him. "And you? Who the hell do you think you are? Getting tangled up with a stand-in over and over again, shamelessly accusing me of stalking you and wanting you. Ethan, I think you're the most shameless, pathetic person here." As I turned to leave, Ethan stubbornly called out to me again. "Then how do you explain the anniversary gift?" He walked slowly up behind me, his voice trembling slightly. "Jamie, I don't believe a word you just said. If you really only got close to me because of my uncle, you wouldn't have given me that brooch. But you did. You even told me so romantically that it was called eternal love." I was speechless. Was he bipolar or something? But then again, I could understand how he was feeling. After all, the stand-in he'd kept for 3 years had just told him, "Sorry, I never loved you. I just used you as a stepping stone to get to the man I actually like. Oh, and I also spent your money and lived in your house." Beyond that, it was just his male ego acting up. I sighed and forced a smile. If deluding yourself makes you feel better, then by all means, be my guest. I'm leaving. But Ethan wouldn't let me. He ridiculously blocked the door with his foot, his whole demeanor changing again. "Jamie, you think just because Evan said he's interested in you that he likes you? That's hilarious. Let me tell you, the only thing Evan sees is money, family, love. None of it means a damn thing to him. Just you wait. You're going to get burned by him. And when you do, don't come crying to me for a place to stay." I rolled my eyes. "Your imagination is running wild. I'm not as shameless as you." With that, I pulled out my phone and started settling the score. The $1 million and the villa in Oasis were your voluntary severance pay for being your stand-in. I don't owe you anything, and you don't owe me anything. As for 3 years ago, if I remember correctly, my grandmother's hospital bills and all the other expenses came to about 300,000. I'll transfer it to you now and we'll be even. But Ethan just frowned. What grandmother? What hospital bills? I felt my world crack open. The truth was, the night I agreed to be Ethan's stand-in 3 years ago, I was ready to back out. My grandmother had just been diagnosed with late-stage lung cancer. My parents divorced and remarried when I was little, and she was the one who raised me. My dad's new wife refused to pay, and as for Ethan, I didn't know him well back then and was afraid of getting in over my head. But the surgery was urgent. After thinking it over, I decided to take a risk and ask Ethan for an advance. If he said no, I'd just walk away. But before I could even contact him, a large sum of money suddenly appeared in my bank account. I didn't recognize the sender, but the transfer note just said Mr. Booth. I had jumped to the conclusion that it was Ethan being generous. But the look on his face right now was telling me that Mr. Booth wasn't him. It was someone else. In that instant, I knew. It was Evan. When I got back to the office, I locked the door and walked toward Evan, overflowing with gratitude. I plopped right down on his lap. What? Did you cry yourself out catching up with your ex? I guiltily twisted my fingers. How did you know I went to see Ethan? I told you my stomach hurt and I was going to the bathroom. Evan smirked coldly. Jamie, unlike you, my brain is bigger than a walnut. Stomach ache? You were gone for half an hour. What happened? Get lost in there? No need to be such a buzzkill. For a solid week, Evan worked me to the bone. The secretary saw the way I was walking and told me sympathetically, Mr. Booth isn't usually like this. Really? I asked. The secretary nodded. Then her tone shifted. But Jamie, we live in a society with laws, you know? In times of need, we can use the law to protect ourselves. So, if you're really scared, I can help you call the police. The police? Why would I call the police? Do they even handle this kind of thing? Just then, Chris interrupted our hushed conversation, ordering me around. Go get me a coffee. Americano, no sugar, no milk. And be quick about it, I'm waiting. I held up my hands, refusing. He instantly lost his temper. I'm an assistant manager, and you're just an assistant. What right do you have to refuse me? Wow, a little bit of power really goes to his head. I shot back, you're an assistant manager? Well, I'm the CEO's boy toy. The CEO's boy toy? A voice questioned from nearby. Without thinking, I nodded enthusiastically. Jamie, who made you the CEO's boy toy? As the CEO? How come I don't know anything about this? The air went dead silent. Crap, the CEO himself had arrived. The moment I looked up, I met Evan's dark, intense gaze. I looked away, silently digging my nails into my palm. Mr. Booth, let me explain. Fine, Evan said, his jaw tight. A cold smile played on his lips. Then I'll need my boy toy to come to my office right now and give me a proper explanation. Then, his gaze swept over a gloating Chris, and his lips parted. Jamie is my assistant, which means he only serves me. He only takes orders from me. Assistant Manager Lynn, do you understand? As everyone watched with varying expressions, Chris's face turned beet red. Finally, he reluctantly bowed his head. I'm sorry, Mr. Booth. I understand. Evan tilted his head and smiled. If there's a next time, you can just pack your things and get out. The dim afternoon light cast his profile in sharp relief, highlighting the handsome curve of his brow bone and jawline. So handsome, I thought, silently swallowing. A moment later, Evan was lounging on the sofa, his long fingers tapping a steady rhythm on the armrest. He glanced at me. My little boy toy. Go on, explain. My mouth twitched. I looked around the room and let out a string of coughs. Evan, if you want an explanation, fine, but why did you lock the door and close the blinds? An hour later, I had a profound understanding of my mistake. And I felt that, in times of need, I really should use the law to protect myself. Clearly, Evan didn't think so. He exhaled a satisfied puff of smoke, a smile playing on his lips. My little boy toy, I'm warning you, cut out your little schemes. Don't think I don't know what you're up to. I laughed awkwardly, but inside I was cursing up a storm. You don't know Jack. I'm not going home tonight. I'm going to a bar. See how you like that, you old fossil. I seriously suspect Ethan and Chris have put a tracking device on me. Why else would I run into them everywhere I go? I tried to pretend I didn't see them, but Chris was too quick and called out to me. After humiliating Ethan last time, just seeing him now made me nervous. Chris, oblivious, leaned against Ethan and teased, I hope the boss didn't give you too hard a time this afternoon. He then leaned in and whispered something in Ethan's ear. He got so into it that his shoulders were shaking dramatically. I could only watch as Ethan's expression shifted from resentment to contempt. I had no interest in being their sideshow. But Ethan, after Chris finished whispering in his ear, clearly felt differently. He tightened his arm around Chris's shoulders and said casually, Jamie, I told you Evan was more than you could handle, but you didn't listen. And now look at you paying the price, huh? He wasn't wrong. My body was definitely paying a price. Seeing my silence, Ethan grew even more smug. Life's been tough without me, hasn't it? But don't worry. If you get on your knees and apologize to me and Chris right now, I'll generously give you a receptionist job at my company so you can get by. Chris tilted his head and chimed in, Are you deaf? Neil. I clenched my fists and met his gaze with a smile. My hearing is just fine. Unfortunately, I don't understand animal noises. Here, boy, come on. Say something I can understand. His face twisted in rage, and he glared at me. Ethan, eager to defend him, was about to launch into a tirade, but the words died on his lips. At the same time, a sudden chill came from behind me. A black jacket was draped over my shoulders, and Evan's ice-cold voice cut through the air. Ethan, is this how I raised you? Have some manners. Is that any way to talk to your uncle? Ethan's face instantly darkened. Uncle? What do you mean? Evan affectionately ruffled my hair, then turned his cold gaze back to him. It means exactly what it sounds like. Ethan froze, the muscles in his face twitching. His knuckles were white from clenching his fists. Uncle, Jamie is my ex-boyfriend. How could you make a move on your own nephew's ex? Evan just gave a dismissive "Oh. You said it yourself, he's your ex-boyfriend. Why can't I make a move? Besides, the one who isn't loved is the real third wheel. I'm not the third wheel and I didn't break you up, so what's the problem? I tugged on his arm, seizing the opportunity to be cute. I'd never let you be the third wheel, I whispered. Evan just flexed his jaw. You shut up, he practically growled. We'll settle this when we get home. See? I told you he was a clueless old man. 3 hours later, I was staring at the ceiling, feeling dead inside. In a daze, I thought back to that rose-tinted afternoon. I had been draped over Evan like a boneless fish, forcing him to admit that he was the one who paid for my grandmother's hospital bills, and that he'd fallen for me at first sight when I gave him those flowers. Back then, Evan had rested his head on my shoulder, his ears turning red and hot with shyness. Sigh, it was so nice. But good things never last. The Evan of today was like a wolf that could never be satisfied. I was tired. So tired. My little boy toy, Evan said, walking out of the bathroom while drying his hair. Want to make it official? Official? I shot up from the bed like a spring. Mr. Booth, please elaborate. He frowned at my bare feet, then casually tossed me a pair of pants and put slippers down in front of me. Making it official means we get married. The secretary has already booked the tickets. We leave tomorrow morning. Happiness had come so suddenly. I was instantly re-energized, feeling like I had endless strength. I sidled up to him and playfully touched his abs, grinning. He slapped my hand away in disgust. Did you wash your hands? The sound of running water wasn't very loud. I could hear Evan in the living room on the phone. Yes, his name is Chris. Tell HR tomorrow. Have him pack his things and get out. And that subsidiary Ethan is running. Yes, let them know the funding is off. As for the development team, they're no longer needed. What? You're sleeping? Don't go to sleep yet. I have to tell you something. Do you know what I'm doing tomorrow? I'm getting married. Haha. Bet you didn't see that coming. Hello? Hello? You there? Did he hang up? I wasn't finished. 3 seconds later, Evan yelled for me. My little boy toy. I'm not happy. I said, you're about to be off the market and you're not happy? He replied, I don't care. You need to come out here and make me happy. I was so over this. Evan wasn't this clingy before we got together. Just end me now. I'm really, truly tired.